Coming up on Network Africa, UN due to hold emergency session on Sudan. Trapped residents speak of difficult circumstances in Khartoum's war zone. Plus, Guinea frees activists after deadly protests. Hello and welcome to Network Africa on Channels Television. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. Let's start with the UN meeting in Geneva, where United Nations Human Rights Chief Volker Turk has said both groups in the conflict in Sudan have trampled upon international humanitarian law. Opening an emergency session of the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva, Mr. Turk urged countries with influence in Africa to help end the violence. Fighting has been continuing in the capital Khartoum and in the city of Omdurman. On Wednesday, witnesses in Khartoum reported air raids and counter fire from anti-aircraft guns. This is the fourth week of fighting between Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and his former deputy, Mohamed Dagalo, who commands the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, the RSF. Several African nations, including Sudan, are reported to be reluctant about the meeting being held, fearing it could jeopardize ongoing ceasefire negotiations. The session was called for by Britain, the US, Germany, and Norway.
The Human Rights Council has called this special session to express its urgent concern for the rights and lives of Sudan's people. I take this opportunity to urge all states with influence in the region to encourage by all possible means the resolution of this crisis. I strongly condemn this wanton violence in which both sides have trampled international humanitarian law, notably the principles of distinction, proportionality, and precaution.
We must send a united message of concern and of horror about the increase in human rights violations and abuses since the outbreak of the conflict. We must use our collective influence to break the cycle of impunity in Sudan, which only leads to further violence. There must be accountability for the horrific events taking place.
Now, since fighting erupted in Sudan on April the 15th, providing life's necessities has become a challenging task for residents in the capital, more like living in a jungle. That's how Hashim, who remains stranded in Khartoum, describes his situation. The 35-year-old business owner says he hasn't been able to find rice or pasta for a week. He would have left Sudan but couldn't because he lost his passport before the fighting began. Hashim is one of millions of people still believed to be in Khartoum more than 3 weeks after the eruption of deadly fighting between the army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces.
You need to make your run to the supermarket, and it depends on the stock of the supermarket. So if you're looking for rice, this supermarket might not have, but this supermarket might have. So it's a hunt. It's like you live in a jungle and you go outside to hunt for your prey. So it depends on, sometimes you would go with a list that you need for the house. You will end up getting half of that list. So it's a hassle. It's a hassle. My situation, personal situation, that I'm one of those people who doesn't have a passport in hand. I lost my passport before the war, and I applied for a new one, but the war happened. So I'm stuck with no passport. I have all my papers. So a ceasefire will help a lot. Even the people that had their income stopped, people are living on daily income. And people with companies that have normal life to gain income so they can survive and eat and feed their family and feed themselves, they will be able at least to maneuver around and make a living. I don't feel safe living in Khartoum because nobody is feeling safe. Constant airstrikes you hear day and night. Even though it's lesser than it used to be now, you only hear it in the morning and in the late night. Couple of rifle fighters and bullets you hear during the day, but not as much. But still, you're in constant worry that you be laying in bed and a bomb will fall into you and break your building or bomb your house. So every time you hear an airplane, every time you hear a bomb, you be on edge, on your toes. That's a feeling that I don't want anybody to feel or endure. That's a very difficult situation.
Still in Sudan, ferocious fighting between paramilitary fighters and the military is still taking place in the northern suburbs of the capital. The battles in Bari echo those that took place in central Khartoum in the first days of the conflict, which erupted more than 3 weeks ago. The paramilitary Rapid Support Force, that's the RSF group, said in a video that it had shot down a military fighter jet in Bari, something that is yet to be confirmed independently. Since the start of the conflict, RSF fighters have been in control of Khartoum, that's much of Khartoum, with the army attacking them from the air. The army now says it is making good progress on the ground and maintains it is gaining the upper hand in Bari. Residents in Omdurman say shells have fallen at the famous Al-Mahdi Mosque, and a huge market in the area has just been overrun by looters. With people short of food and money, widespread looting broke out on Wednesday afternoon, targeting all shops, whether open or even closed. Away from Sudan, the authorities in Guinea have released 3 civil society activists who had spent between 4 and 10 months in prison. Now, the men from the National Front for the Defense of the Constitution were freed after a day of protests against the military junta, which seized power in September 2021. The organizers of the rally say 7 people died and dozens were wounded in clashes with the security forces, although hospitals report just 2 fatalities. This comes after the latest in a series of demonstrations against the military leaders who have delayed a return to civilian rule. A former Rwandan military policeman has gone on trial in France for alleged crimes committed during the 1994 Rwandan genocide. Philippe Hategekimana, who has been living in France under an assumed identity for many years, obtained refugee status in France and then French nationality under the name Philippe Manière. He had worked as a university security guard in France and fled to Cameroon in 2017 when he heard a complaint had been filed against him. He was arrested in Yaoundé and extradited to France the following year. According to the 170-page indictment seen by France's Le Monde newspaper, he is accused of actively participating in the killing of hundreds of ethnic Tutsis while working as a senior gendarme in Nyanza, a town in the south of the country. He has denied the charges and will face life in jail if found guilty. The trial's main hearing is scheduled to take place next month. An attack near a synagogue in Tunisia has killed 6 people, including the gunman. The attacker, a National Guard member, killed a colleague at a naval installation, then traveled to the synagogue where an annual Jewish pilgrimage was taking place and opened fire on police and visitors before he was shot dead. Social media videos and photos showed people gathering inside Griba synagogue after the attack. Worshippers attending the pilgrimage described a scene of panic after gunshots rang out as people tried to hide in different rooms of the synagogue. 2 Jewish cousins, 1 French and the other Israeli-Tunisian, were killed, along with 1 police officer who died at the scene and another in hospital. 4 more police were injured along with 4 other visitors. Authorities have not yet outlined a motive or said if anyone else was involved in the attack, which is the deadliest in years and took place on an island that is a major destination for Tunisia's vital tourism industry. Israel's foreign ministry described the attack as a lethal shooting incident, with a spokesperson saying it was still under investigation. The death toll from flooding in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo has been creeping up. Earlier in the week, aid workers found more bodies among the muddy devastation, and wounded residents also succumbed to their injuries in an under-equipped local clinic. The floods in a remote mountainous area of South Kivu province ripped through the riverside villages of Yamukubi and Bushushu 5 days ago, razing houses, destroying crops, and even killing more than 400 people. It has been classified as the deadliest natural disaster in Congo's recent history. The scale of destruction has highlighted the vulnerability of people to climate change in many parts of Africa, where poor urban planning and weak infrastructure means communities often cannot withstand increasing bouts of extreme weather. We now head to the eastern part of the African continent, and that's Kenya, where at least 9 people have died and more than 80 others hospitalized from a mysterious disease outbreak in Marsabit County. Out of the 9 people who have died, 6 were adults and 3 children between 1 and 3 years. Most of the affected persons exhibited flu-like symptoms, yellow eyes, swollen spleen, and even severe headaches. Some patients have tested positive for malaria, but medics say visceral leishmaniasis, also known as Kala-Azar disease, could not be ruled out. This outbreak comes 2 months after the Kenya Medical Research Institute detected an invasive mosquito species in Lesamis and Saku areas of Marsabit County. Zimbabwe's president has withdrawn an information ban on how the state procures medical and other supplies. It followed an outcry after the government's gazette announced last Friday it was no longer going to make the information available. Critics accused the government of fostering an environment that allowed corruption to flourish. President Emerson Mnangagwa has now distanced himself from the controversial notice, saying it was placed without authorization and the government was committed to transparency. Earlier on Wednesday, government spokesperson Nick Nagwana defended the ban, saying it was to allow the purchase of emergency supplies and critical equipment repairs without a long-drawn procurement process. Well, after the break, Tanzania opens landmark bone marrow transplant unit. That's in a moment. Join us again. Welcome back to Network Africa. Of course, we're still beaming our searchlight on the ferocious battles and looting going on in Sudan. We now speak with someone who is recently returned from the Northeast African country. Ishaq Ibrahim speaks to us online from Osun State. Hello, Ishaq, and thank you for joining us on Network Africa.
Hello, good afternoon, sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, very well, very well. Thank you for joining us once again.
Well,
all right,
sir,
so let's...
welcome, sir.
Yeah, let's start off very quickly. When actually did you return to Nigeria?
Actually, I returned last week, Thursday, Nigeria. I was one of the first batch that was evacuated to Nigeria.
So tell us some of your experiences just before you left Sudan.
Actually, this war started sudden. It was a sudden and also unexpected, because this day it was the day we were having one of our exams that's supposed to hold last month, which is on 15. So as we left the house to go and write the exams, so when we reach our school, we were sent back to the house. We think maybe it is also an urgent to the school also. The school did not know. It is also an emergency something to the school, because unlike every other day, the protest usually happened, and whenever the protest is going on like that, they used to tell us a day or 2 days before the protest that there is going to be a protest today, stay at home. So, but this particular day, it was an emergency to us. So it is when we reached the gate that we were sent back that we should go home, that there is nothing that is going to happen at school today.
Interesting. So Ishaq, how has it been for you since you got back from the Sudan?
Actually, we thank God that brought us back home safely, and we also thank our government that also helped us, because if it is not for their help, we don't know where we will be now. So we thank God that we will back home safely. Thank you so much.
All right. So, of course, you were studying and working, if I want to put it that way. But what course of study were you engaged in? And what work were you also doing aside from studying in Sudan? And I would also like to ask you, if the opportunity came again, would you like to return to the Northeast African country?
Okay, no problem. I'm a student in the University of Africa, International University of Africa, which is IUA. So I'm studying pharmacy. I'm a third year level student at that university. So, and we hope maybe as this event has happened, as a matter of emergency now, we hope maybe our government can help us if we can continue our study in in one of our institutions in this country, sir.
All right, before I let you go, very quickly, I just want to find out from you. Talk to us about the cooperation, the level of cooperation between the Sudanese authorities and, of course, Nigerians like you who actually study or live, work there in Sudan. What's the relationship like, before this conflict broke out? How would you describe it?
Yes. Thank you so much. I would like to talk more about that because when this event started, we don't have anything in mind that what are we going to do, because as before, if we have anything or maybe anyone is in problem, we have to go to airport and do the visa and do everything necessary so that we can come back home. So as this thing is a matter of emergency, we don't know what to do, even though some offices are not working these times. So we need to write a letter to the embassy so that the Nigerian government can help us. So after we wrote a letter, so through our organization, we have a Nigerian association there that we host. So through this association, we wrote a letter to the government. So after that time, we wait maybe for some days before we get the report from the government that we should be prepared that we may be evacuate anytime from this time, from the time we drop the letter, sir.
Well, we certainly hope the authorities concerned. Go ahead, please, very quickly.
Yes. So after that time, it took some days before we got the approval from the government about our traveling. So we were just stranded. We were at our school premises, waiting for the government to come and do something. So even our embassy that time, some of them ran away. We don't know what is going on. Are they afraid of showing up to us or what is going on? We don't know anything about that. But we were waiting for them. Even though when we were waiting, we don't know, maybe it's as a result that Nigerian has not answered them. We were told that Nigerian is not ready to take us. We should just stay indoor and stay at a safe place. So later we are now evacuated to the border. We are now evacuated with motor from the school premises to the Egypt border in order to take the plane. So after that time, we want to ask you something. So we left the school premises, and after we reached, it took us a day before we reached the Egypt border in order to take the plane. So, but when we reached this border, we also met another problem.
Anyway,
this problem is that although
it's like I'll definitely have to.
We met some countries.
I'll have to let us
also
end it there.
Wanted to enter this.
I'll have to let us end it there. Thank you so much for your thoughts again, Isaac Ibrahim. No, thank you. No, thank you so much. We thank you for your thoughts. Definitely, you've been very helpful on the program Network Africa. Thank you once again for joining us. Let's head to Tanzania, where the country has opened its first bone marrow transplant center in the capital, Dodoma. According to the director of Benjamin Mkapa Hospital, it marks a milestone for the country's health sector, and the unit will focus on treating patients with sickle cell disease. Only a handful of countries in Africa offer bone marrow transplant services. Well, sickle cell is an inherited disorder, and most cases are found in sub-Saharan Africa. It is caused by a faulty gene that affects how red blood cells develop, hampering their ability to absorb oxygen. The condition can cause severe pain and organ failure. A bone marrow transplant replaces bone marrow with healthy cells. It's also used to treat patients with leukemia or blood cancer. According to Tanzania's Ministry of Health, the East African nation ranks 4th in the world for the highest rate of sickle cell, with around 11,000 children born with the disease each year. And back here in Nigeria, the Lagos State government is soliciting for more collaborations from healthcare providers in order to improve service delivery to the enrollees. The Commissioner for Health, Professor Akin Abayabi, who was represented by the Permanent Secretary of the State Ministry of Health, Dr. Olusegun Ogboye, at the first Ilera Eco Providers Forum, says collaboration has become necessary in order to harness all the resources and capacity available to better the scheme.
It's the first Ilera Eco Providers Forum at Sheraton Hotel, Ikeja, Lagos. And senior health officials and healthcare providers registered under the Lagos State Health Insurance Scheme called Ilera Eco, as well as other stakeholders in the health sector, gathered to deliberate on how to improve their services. The general manager of the State Health Management Agency, Dr. Emanuela Zamba, sets the tone for the discussion, highlighting what has been achieved through the partnership and plans for better services.
The agency has partnered with several organizations, including a diverse mix of health providers, to ensure that all residents of Lagos have access to quality and affordable healthcare. I must assure you that strategies developed and decisions taken here today will remain valuable tools for a sure progression towards improving the scheme at large.
Achieving and sustaining health insurance schemes is a priority for the government, and the chairman of the State Health Service Commission appeals to partners to ensure quality service.
This desire for a change comes from the heart and an individual heart. If each and every one of us can go back home with this seriously and tell any community we have, any friend, any family member who has not got their Lashma card to please engage in one, I believe that we can make it happen, and we can make this country a greater country.
Dr. Olusegun Ogboye for the keynote remarks.
Wearing the cap of the State Commissioner for Health is the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Health, Dr. Olusegun Ogboye, and he reads his speech.
We have taken actionable steps towards improving access and benefits on Ilera Eco by expanding the health benefit package on the Ilera Eco plan, and various provider improvement initiatives are also being implemented, from technical training to the distribution of drugs to address the out-of-stock syndrome. However, in spite of all that we have achieved, there is still a lot more to be done.
Other stakeholders call for more attention on public health issues such as gender-based violence and welcome more collaboration to expand the Ilera Eco scheme, which currently has over 756,000 registered residents.
With the increase in formal and informal reporting of domestic and sexual violence cases, it is therefore most compelling for our symbiotic relationship with LASHMA. Through the Sexual Violence Intervention Fund, we are able to provide access to free medical attention to survivors of sexual violence.
The climax of the event is the presentation of awards to medical directors and health workers who have conducted themselves in an exemplary manner.
These are the gentlemen and women that have ensured.
And that's Network Africa. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ayotunde Balogun.